Hello everyone, welcome to our discussion on the theories of organic evolution. In this session, we are going to discuss about the mutation theory proposed by Hugo de Vries. He was one of the rediscoverers of Mendelism in 1900s. He also proposed the mutation theory. De Vries proposed that mutations are suddenly appearing heritable variations, and these suddenly occurring variations were termed as saltations by Darwin. But he coined a new term for such variations and he called them as mutations. New species were formed in a single step, that is, without any intermediate changes, as suggested by Darwin. So, Darwin suggested that a new species occurs or it evolves gradually by the presence of many intermediate stages. But here in mutation theory, he proposes that De Vries proposes that new species are formed in a single step, that is, they occur suddenly without any intermediate changes. And these intermediate forms are not present because mutations are formed suddenly. Because it forms suddenly, intermediate stages will be absent and it can occur in any direction. Here, direction means it can either be a favorable one or it can be an unfavorable one. That means mutations can either be helpful for the individual or it can be deleterious to the individual. That is why it is said that it can happen in any direction. And natural selection will operate among the mutants. Mutants that are fit will survive and those which are unfit will be eliminated. The examples of mutants are the acorn sheep and also the white-eyed Drosophila. De Vries actually proposed mutations based on his studies in the wild plant which is Ornithera in a potato garden. De Vries classified the mutants into four types: progressive species, retrogressive species, digressive, and inconstant species. Here, progressive species are those mutants where one or two features or characters are observed which are not present in the original parent. That means some new traits appear in the offsprings which is not present in the parents. Such mutants are called as progressive because they have attained or gained some new features. Coming to retrogressive, in this variety, because the name itself retrogressive, they are losing something. They lose some of the features of the parents, or some of the parental features are not present in the offspring. Such mutants are called as retrogressive species. And digressive species are those species or mutants where one or more essential characters are lost. Therefore, their survival is limited. So what happens is the difference between retrogressive and digressive is that in retrogressive, all the essential characters are present, but some parental features are absent. Coming to digressive, digressive can be also considered a category of retrogressive because what happens is actually retrogressive. They are losing some features of parents, but the features lost are essential features for their survival because without that their survival might be impaired, and such mutants are referred to as digressive species. Coming to inconstant species, here the mutants behave exactly like the parent plants and occasionally give rise to mutants. So they are inconstant, that means they shift their features. They sometimes look like their parents and occasionally they give rise to mutants. It can be any type of mutant like progressive, retrogressive, or digressive. So this is a classification of mutants which was proposed by De Vries. And coming to the significance or criticisms of not significant criticisms of mutation theory. So mutation theory or mutations, because they are very rare in nature. Mutations or mutants do not appear uh, in a constant rate or in a natural process. They are very rare in nature, and as a result, they cannot explain the various adaptations met within the organisms. Because only if changes happens always, it can explain something which is called as adaptations, which is meant by the organism. But something a rare phenomenon cannot explain adaptations in a constantly changing environment. So that is one criticism which was raised against the mutation theory. And mutations, which was explained by De Vries, was actually chromosomal aberrations like triploids, polyploids, etc. They were not actual mutants. As a result, the mutation. So that is one criticism that was raised against mutation theory, and it could not explain the real cause of variation. That is nothing but what we now call it as meiosis and crossing over, etc. They could not, or this mutation theory could not explain such mechanisms of how variations occur. That was the limitations of all theories on organic evolution, starting from Lamarck to our Weismann, to Darwin, and to Davis. All the four, they could not explain the the real cause of variation. The reason is nothing but uh, the cytology, the branch which is called as cytology, which now explains what a cell is, what happens to a cell, how a cell divides, how or what is what we now call it as a cell cycle, etc., was completely unknown. Even the genetic material itself was unknown during that particular time. As a result, they could not explain how variations occurred in individuals. And we now know that it is due to the process which we now call it as meiosis or gametogenesis. So, with this, we come to the end of this particular section, which is the theories of organic evolution. Thanks for hearing.